Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast. Season 3, Episode 776.
From the sleepy suburbs of Cleveland, Ohio, there are assembled the world's two greatest podcast hosts, created from the cosmic legends of the universe. Sean Whalen.
Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast. I'm a big fan of varied colors. My love for Batman is that stuff. Let's talk some comics.
And Jim Segulin.
How's it going, eh? You know me and Superman. I'm really loving what they're doing. Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast.
Their mission? To discuss DC comics in books, movies, and television several times a month in 1 to 3 hour episodes. And to serve all mankind.
Outstanding!
Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, the Duke of the Sultan of Strategery, the Minister of More Gooder. How do you solve a problem like the sensei? And of course, he's the elder statesman of the podcast, Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
Jim, on this episode, we're going to begin a two-part look at Superman, the Rise of Superwoman. Also, you may have noticed something in our title. We'll explain more about that at the end of our episode. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segulin, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
We have Adventures of Superman, Book of L, issue 1 of 12, 38% off, only $247. This is a continuation of the Superman story a brilliant story we got from Philip Kennedy Johnson about the future state Superman story that we had. So this is a continuation 12-issue series. Thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com, they have their deals of the week, and they have DC's finest science fiction, The Gorilla World. I'm very interested in this book. The funny part is, full disclosure, I'll admit I've had to re-record this more than once because I keep getting the title wrong. It's $39.99, regularly 55% off, only $17.99. I am collecting gradually these DC finest books. I really like these. They're not quite digest size, but they're a little bit smaller, but they contain like this curation of really cool storylines in an affordable fashion. Everything's full color. These are great books. I'm just loving them. Superman Action Comics Phantoms trade paperback, $24.99, regularly 48% off, only $12.99. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some Superman.
Green Lantern, let you and I destroy that space junk.
Jim, our discussion this episode is going to be part 1 of our look at Rise of the Superwoman. The writer is Joshua Williamson. The artists are Dan Mora, Edwin Gallman, Laura Braga, Nicola, and it's Cizmesija, Alejandro Sanchez, and Rex Locus on colors, Adriana Mayer and Dave Sharp on letters. Dan Mora is on, and I'm looking at the collected edition. Dan Mora is actually on the collected edition cover. We're going to talk in this episode about the first 3 issues of this series, starting with issue number 19. Jim, where have you been at with Superman? With your reading of Superman, this particular storyline that we're going to be reading right now, did you start reading it for this episode? Have you been caught up on Superman? Where have you been on Superman?
Superman and Action I've been caught up on. So I can't pretend that I don't know what's going to happen because I am 100% all caught up on that. It's funny with the reading. There's some of the DC stuff that kind of got laxed. Superman never did, So it was funny getting ready for this episode. You're like, hey, let's do that. I'm like, hey, I love that story. That's great, And and same thing if we were to talk Action. The stuff that Clark was going through is some great stuff as well. So. So I've been caught up on. Now, it's funny, the Superman Unlimited, I haven't read that one yet. I'm behind on that.
The new book.
the new book.
It's really good.
I know. And
I'm not spoiling. I'm not going to spoil a single thing, but it is one of those. I will say this for anybody: if you're looking at Superman Unlimited and saying, it's just some kind of extra book they're doing, there's something big that happens in that book. I am going to tease that. Like it is an important issue that is going to play very heavily into what's going on moving forward. So do not miss that issue. It's got that caliber of storytelling. So this is spinning out of the event that we did where Lois has powers now. What do you think about that? Lois having powers, Lois and Superman. I love this. This is like, I'm so geeking out at Lois having to navigate the dual life, but also somehow them as a couple being able to connect deeply over this. I think the writing on this is so good, both in and out of costume for the characters in what they're doing here. This is a joy.
Dude, this has just been a happy moment for me. I'm reading this. I'm having a ball. And I've often said in the past how, with Lois Lane, you need a character, you need to understand why this man with godlike powers would be in love with a mere mortal, because Lois Lane is just such an awesome person. She's a great character. She's just a absolutely wonderful human being, and you understand why Clark is so in love with her. He looks at her as his partner.
Yes.
In this, not as that's just my wife. No, that's his partner. That's his right hand. And I love the fact that now she's got the powers and she can keep up with him and she can do stuff like he can, and she can kind of see the other side of it. She always knew Clark, what he had to deal with and the responsibility he had. Now she's starting to get the further groove on it. And I love the fact that they're not losing Lois and Clark, and they're just adding to their understanding of each other. For me, this was just an absolutely brilliant idea. I loved, that, she's sitting there right alongside him.
Yeah.
Because she needs to be. Because there's no way Lois Lane would sit back, say, "Oh, okay, you go ahead, honey. I'll just sit back here." Oh no, she's throwing down, and she threw down before she had powers. She was, she threw down before she had powers, and she was like, "Hey, it's you got to do what you got to do," and I love that, seeing that.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. I think that's the nice thing about Lois Lane is the fact that this relationship, it isn't a jump to them working as partners. They've always done that. So I love how organically it's kind of like, okay, she has powers now, and yes, we've got to deal with some training and how to use some of that, but at the same time, this type of working relationship for the two of them isn't foreign. They have done this for years. This is how they became the couple that they are. So I love that difference. Whereas sometimes a newbie character, it's now you've got to work through your working dynamic. They've already got that. It's just now that they're able to do a bit of a different moveset together. And I really liked that difference. I think it's something that led to clever storytelling. I want to, before we kick in, just praise the artwork of Dan Mora. I just think on this book, I'm very Superman happy right now. The film, I knew the film coming up, and at the time when we had decided to do this, we hadn't seen the film yet. So I knew that with Superman coming, I felt like I want to do something Superman this summer. I want to do a story arc. I want us to really kind of get back and talk about this character because we haven't in a while. And I felt like this was a good arc to do it, just because of it. Spinning off of the movie, and I just want to talk more Superman because the movie was so outstanding. And I feel like this book thematically matches what I loved about the movie. It's just about character, right? I feel like this is hanging with our friends again and seeing just everything that's going on. I feel like the way the bullpen's written, I feel like we talk about Lois and Lois wanting to be a writer again. She mentions that piece. It's things that you miss. I can relate to that. Like, I was a teacher for 17 years. Loved it. I absolutely loved it. I taught third grade the entire time. I'm a tech director now, which I love. I love my job every single day. I love going into work. But there's days where I miss having my own class and building those relationships and things like that. And I was like sitting there saying, this is stuff that anybody can relate to, right? These are real characters when they're written this way. This book, Joshua Williamson, when I see Joshua Williamson's name on anything, I know I'm going to really dig it. Is back when that Flash run that Joshua Williamson did was so good. It just it graduated this writer into a level where I get excited when I see the name attached to a project. And my gosh, to have this in Superman, this opening, this page, I'm looking at the end page, right? What a way to kick off this storyline. Oh my gosh. Like right from the get-go, this is going to be a thing. Time Trapper. Obviously, we're seeing Time Trapper's hand right in the bottom there. What is your history with Time Trapper? And what do you think about the way that they have evolved Time Trapper's storyline to envelope it into Doomsday?
My history with Time Trapper is this current story arc.
Okay.
I have no recollection of ever reading a Time Trapper story before this. So if he was around, if we covered him, I've forgotten him.
Okay.
So, and again, and to answer your second part of the thing, oh my God, I love it.
Yeah.
I love the evolution of Doomsday because we've seen, again, the idea behind Doomsday is, every time he dies, he gets more powerful. And you always think, oh, it's just stronger and power. No, we're seeing a shift now to intelligence. So you've got the power of Doomsday and an intelligence behind it. I'm like, oh, that makes him even more dangerous. And I love just this notion how, and again, it's all about, he's playing Clark, but he's not playing. It's one of those really neat villain things where he's like, he is, kind of manipulating the situation. He's manipulating Clark to get what he wants. So it's the strategy that he's throwing out there is absolutely brilliant. And I don't want to say manipulating because he's being very open and honest about what he's doing. He's upfront about it, and that's the best way to manipulate somebody is by telling them, this is what I want you to do. This is why I want you to do it. Yeah,
but he's doing the A and the B choices.
Yeah,
it's kind of and one choice is awful.
Yes, and the other one's not much better.
Right. So, Time Trapper, the history of Time Trapper has been around since Adventure Comics 317 in 1964. So this is a Legion of Superheroes villain. So when you think about the history of obviously Superman with the Legion and everything like that, it's great that they brought this in. I loved your answer because of the fact that I feel like this storyline did a great job of doing an introduction of this character for somebody who's not as versed in the character, and yet doing something that for somebody like me who I love the character, I love time travel stuff in general. So you got me with timey-wimey characters and things, but Time Trapper as a villain has been a villain that I've always enjoyed. I like when they add another layer and make the character relevant today. I like when they evolve villains, because there's a chance to bring them back, tell new storytelling with them. And as with anything, if a writer in the future wants to undo this somehow, they can.
Very easily. This can all be undone.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of the fun of this is done for a really cool storytelling purpose. And I love it. This opening sequence, though, is the fire over the emblem. Is breathtaking. This is really great artwork. I love that, you can almost feel the fire washing over it. There's artists that are able to do this motion. We talk about it with running and with the, flying effects and things like that. In this case, you've got fire swimming over his symbol.
Yeah.
And you see the motion in it. And I love that. I just think that's really, really clever when you get to see that. And it makes it more breathtaking when you go to the initial splash page and you see it there. I thought that this was a great build into the artwork right there, this is a stunning book.
Oh God. Yeah. And again, we're saying artwork, it's the full art team on this bad boy.
Correct.
This is absolutely brilliant on all ends. And I always say how Superman needs to have that pop, has had that dun dun, and we are 100% getting a brilliant pop on that. This right here is just a really cool. Again, we've gushed about this fire sequence, but again, it's a living entity. Everyone talks about how fire, is actually, it consumes, it breathes, it's alive, and all that kind of cool stuff. You see the lifeblood in it. And I love how that goes. And then even when you flip the page and you get back to now, Metropolis, I love how that looks.
Yes.
This was, you have this dun 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 kind of moment. You flip the page and you're just like, the Metropolis skyline, Olsen trying to talk to the chief. I love the fact that Lois is the chief, and then again, showing the close up of her one-on-one interview with Superman, the first interview with Superman. I love how they go from this massively, oh my God moments to nowadays, present time.
That opening page article, when you take a look at that picture, I love that it's an old style Superman symbol. It's, Lois Lane's kind of got a more classic haircut. All that stuff works. I want to say one more thing about the fire sequence with Superman. It's when you look at his confident, like he's sitting there having a confident conversation while he's engulfed in flames.
Yeah.
This is Superman.
Yeah.
I just love that kind of stuff. The color work, to your point earlier, about just how this art team works really well together. That Metropolis skyline, when you see it, just has such a beautiful pop. Like that's color work. It's great when you've got a marriage of this art team there. Jimmy, I'm very high on because of the film.
Yeah.
Like I've always liked Jimmy Olsen, but man, like the film had like this really good version of him. So like in the comic, it's funny how the film really, I didn't need a motivator to really be enjoying Superman as a comic book character. But man, when it nails it, it's funny when you're dealing with him, like this character and the characters in his universe in another medium, you come back to this and you're like, yeah, I wanted more of these guys. I just got to see great versions of them on the screen. Now I want to read more. I want to watch more. I get why, I guess HBO Max right now is having a surge in Superman-related content and DC-related content, like Peacemaker shot up again, but people are watching this stuff. And I think it's great because there's been a lot of DC material that I think people missed. And I'm glad that there's a chance for that to get a second life and people to see some of the quality stuff that they missed because of it. I get it that it's what it's doing for us. It's doing for more casual fans, I think. And I like seeing that. Just because, especially with what's coming. Did you see that slate of content that's coming from DC? I didn't know we were getting a Blue Beetle series. Did you know that?
I did not know that either. So that's awesome.
Like I knew Waller was coming. We talked about that ages ago, but I admittedly forgot about it. It was one of those things where I remember them announcing it, spinning out a Peacemaker and her popularity there. But I will take Viola Davis as Waller in a solo television series any day of the week.
I will take Viola Davis as Waller reading the phone book.
Yes, please.
That's
as Amanda Waller, though. It's got to be as Amanda Waller reading the phone book. Yes.
Yeah, there's no way. She's awesome, but she's got to read it as Amanda.
It's got to be like the Wall would, because you know what, the Wall's going to have some comments about people as she gets to them, and that would be fun.
Yeah.
There is a point like that's thrown out a lot, about you doing the whole phone book thing, but there's a point like I'm like, oh, that actually would be interesting because she would like there should be certain people that get arrested from that and never seen again because she's the Wall.
Now, one of the things that did crack me up on this sequence with Lois and Olsen, she's sitting there saying she wants the picture of Superwoman. But as Superwoman, she's doing everything she can to prevent Jimmy from getting hit. I'm like, oh, that's just me.
But what a great way to start covering up that it's you. And for Lois, it's a lot more critical because how do you hide that it's Lois Lane? She doesn't have the glasses thing. There's not another look for her. I mean, if the picture gets shot at her, she's in trouble.
Yeah. And I do like the fact that, she's not wearing a mask. Because if you got the big red S on your chest, you don't wear a mask. You don't hide your face. And I think that for me was neat that she's doing that.
Yeah.
And again, but it is going to be tough. And, what happens? What if it eventually comes out? How does she handle it? Because we have that whole the brain bomb in everybody's head if they ever figure out the secret.
Yeah.
If someone sees that Lois Lane is Superwoman, how long will it take for, anybody to figure out, hey, I wonder, is Clark Kent Superman? Boom, and they have a stroke and die. That, so she's, playing, it's again, I get why she's doing it, but there is a way she is playing with fire a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I like that danger, though, because I feel like it adds a reality to all of this that I'm really, really enjoying. Secret identities are fun to explore when you do it, and this has added a fresh new take on it. This also puts Clark in danger. Because you figure now, nobody knows that Clark's Superman now. That's been undone, right? We've seen what that looks like when everybody knows and what a problem that can be. In this case, we've got a universe where people do not know that Clark is Superman. His wife is running around as Superwoman right now. I like this sense of he's not stopping her. They're embracing it together. Everything they're doing is check, 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 check. I agree with everything that they're doing, but I also agree with the fact that they are, and I agree with your point. Doesn't wear a mask because the whole S symbol thing, you got to keep that vibe. But I like that there's a real sense of a coordinated team effort to keep this secret. Yeah, because it does not just affect Lois; it affects Clark. If Lois is outed as Superwoman, he's done. I mean, that's it. They know. They're gonna know, and I really, really like that. This has been a very, very cool storyline that I didn't know I wanted. When the boom happens in the distance. And you see Lois's reaction. She's having that conversation with Jimmy. I do like that we're starting to see some cracks because you have to deal with the fact that she is the editor-in-chief. Now she's vanishing. And her cover stories are starting to crisscross. And I really like that we've got two members of the bullpen. She told two different things. That being said, the closet moment between Clark and Lois, and I like what they're doing with Clark's hair in the comics now. You know, like where we're seeing when he's in his Clark Kent mode, his hair's a little different. It was something in the film that it was really, I thought was a very, very nice touch. I know the hypnotizing and all that kind of stuff. Some people don't love that whole thing. Fine. There's also the fact that Corn Sweat had a different hairstyle when he was Clark Kent, drastically different. And I thought it really did an effective job when you've got I have a no-head hair. So I don't have the option to do that. He did, and it worked really, really well. So I thought that was something that's good. I'm glad that they're playing that up in the comics too, in the artwork, because I think it's those subtle differences do add to the identity change between being Clark Kent and Superman. Grant Morrison and during that All-Star Superman run did that slumping of Superman,
hunched over,
which I thought was very cool too. I like when they play around with let's do like a different visual styling for Clark Kent to really play up the fact that he acts differently, he looks differently, more than just the glasses. And you got to see that. This part, when they're going to change, Lois is not any different. He is. And I do like the distinction because it adds an exclamation point as far as why we have to do something different with her. And I do like her costume. I like that the S symbol is very much, it's the same family, but that the costume has a different vibe to it. It doesn't look like a cookie cutter, like this is Supergirl's costume just put on Lois. This is a costume that's been crafted for it. Please.
Yeah, well, I love that each of the S family have their own variations on it.
Yes.
And they need to have that. I'm glad they went with, okay, this is Superman. Now we've got Superman, John, we've got Superwoman, we've got Connor, we've got, all you pick another super, the kids that they've adopted, they have their variations on the costume. You can all tell, you all see the big red S, this is a Superman family. It's who each one has it personalized to who they are. And I like variations on little costumes here. I don't need to have it exactly. And I'm glad that they went with little changes and little tweaks to Lois's look, that she didn't have, she didn't have to follow Clark's costume. Because that would have, for me, taking Clark's costume and putting it on her, that would have looked bad. You mentioned before Supergirl's costume on her. I would have had an issue with that, but I would have had a bigger issue if she took Clark's costume and put it on her. And I like that they went with how they went with it, and it looks cool and it fits. And I'm like, yes, let's keep going with this.
Yeah, I love that aspect of it. When they're flying, it's something that I liked in the film a great deal. Like when we got that opening James Bond sequence with him and we got to see him flying. I'm going to be very cautious on what I say about the film just because we're not doing a spoiler on the film. But there is a sequence where you get to see him flying and he's smiling, and you get this sense of flying's fun. This page, flying's fun.
Like look at her eyes. I mean, that is just like that sense of wonder. And I like that she's got commentary about what it's like to fly, and this is something that she didn't understand. Like, how do you even land? Like, why would you even land? I like that she's like, what was the purpose of being on the ground when you can do this? And I love that. I love that feel of it because it just enhances something with him. We knew as fans, but to get that put in the dialogue and have her see it through her eyes is something cool. I do like when characters connect us and we feel like, wow, she had no powers. Now she has them. This is what it'd be like for us. And I feel like this has so many of those moments that as fans, you can't help but like geek out. It gets the imagination churning. And this part's really, really fun. This is a great issue.
Oh, God, yeah. And again, it's, we're a couple pages into it and we're now getting into a combat sequence.
Right.
And I love that. And again, this was, this did a brilliant job of, we're having some fun moments. You had the nice closet moment, like, hey, just that little bit of, that's kind of funny. And then now we're going into action. Now we're going to go into a fight sequence.
Yes.
And I loved again, great pacing, great layout of this story. Cause I love when Clark tries to reason with his villains first. That is such a Clark thing to do. And he's like, hey, Albert, what are you doing? I thought we moved past the crime life. What is this? And he's trying to reason with him. He could have very easily cold-cocked this guy on a thing and gone back to work. No, he's Superman. He's trying to solve it without punching the guy. I love when I see the heroes do that. Wonder Woman constantly does that. It's one of the things I love about Wonder Woman that she does. She's constantly trying to, ration and reason with her villains versus just going in and beating the crud out of them. But again, Soup is my guy. And I especially was like, yes.
It's funny that you're linking the two. What both have successfully done more than once is turned some of their villains. Like over time, Batman's done it too, to a certain extent. So, I mean, it's something that the big three have done, but Wonder Woman and Superman do it a little differently. And I do like the distinction. I love that he's not calling him Atomic Skull. He's calling him Albert, to your point.
Yes.
And we're getting to the human. Like, let's peel off all these layers and get to that piece. We don't get the touchy-feely hug, hey, Superman, let's high five. I'm with you, buddy. I'm going to hang up my crime and all that kind of stuff. But I love the attempt. And you feel like each one of those starts to wear it away, right? He brings these thugs with him, his atomic zoo. Now, in a normal Superman story, they would be the ones that would be keeping Superman busy while Atomic Skull's up to his shenanigans, right? Not in this case. Superwoman, can you take care of the lackeys? I'm going to take care of Atomic Skull. We're going to divide and conquer. I loved the way that played out because it's now enabling him to be so much more effective in the way kind of we see a Batman and Robin operating. And she's clearly a full partner in this piece. He's trusting her power set more and more, and you can see this great working relationship between the two of them. It's the best of Batman and Robin, and when Batman does this with Robin, and trusts the partnership, you get to see this kind of thing happening. This is very much like the Batman and Tim Drake relationship.
Yes.
If there's a one that I'm going to pull out at its best years, where Tim Drake was bringing in that different level of strategy and just functioning the way that Tim Drake did, I think you got this kind of storytelling, and I love seeing this. This is brilliant.
And I love Supercorp, by the way.
I do too.
This is, and again, it's great. They're tracking Superwoman's power levels. You're steady, you're stable, you're okay for frost breath, but no go on the heat vision. It burns too much out of you. And I love the fact that they're monitoring Lois's levels because she's not a Kryptonian who can reabsorb energy. So they got to make sure she doesn't burn herself out, because she may never, if she burns herself out, she may not be able to get her powers back. She may be done. That may be the end of Superwoman. She could be mid-fight, and lose her powers outright. And I love the fact that thought doesn't slow Lois down. She's going to keep doing it, and she's going to fight for her family. She's going to fight for what's right. But it's really cool moments. And then I love this with Mercy. I think Mercy is doing an absolute brilliant job in this book, and I'm loving where the character is going. And I love the fact that Lena is supposed to be there right alongside with the team. And it's like, where is Lena? And Lena's with her dad, trying to help her dad out. And it's funny because I'm watching this, and she's showing old clips of Lex to Lex, trying to get him to remember who he was. And I'm catching myself saying, Lena, don't remind him of who he was.
Yes. Why are you doing this?
Why are you doing this? This is a much better version of Lex.
Yes. I like memory-free Lex. And like, it's coming. I'm enjoying my time with him.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I've been, I 100% was thinking, is this real or is this Lex pretending he doesn't have a memory?
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I was 100% thinking that the entire time, and there's a couple moments in this issue where I was like, he doesn't remember. He honestly does not remember. And it comes later on in the issue where, he has that moment and I'm like, if Lex remembered, he would have done something right there, but he doesn't remember it. I love the fact that up until really this point, I was thinking Lex is playing Clark. He's playing Superman. No, I don't think so. And I love the fact that we have that. And again, I'm sitting there going, Lena, what are you doing, Lena?
Oh yes, 1000%. It's like, why do you think this is a good idea on any planet, Lena? Stop what you're doing now. This is an intervention.
Yeah.
Lois during the fight, where we get to see her with the vicious dog, she said, he is too cute. That if she didn't have powers, nobody's saying that. Yeah. I love that because she has powers and that this thing can't hurt her. She's like, this got a cool little pet. Yeah. I love that sequence. Everything about this is super cool. Jimmy being determined to get the picture. I loved seeing him on the motorcycle. Those little attentions to detail saying, what is Olsen doing in this time to try and get what Lois wanted from him? It's really critical to see this quest because it's Jimmy. Jimmy is very resourceful and Jimmy's on scene. And I love that we see the real danger of Jimmy exposing the secret. Or at least getting to know the secret. And that part, because I think the question would be, what would Jimmy do if he found out? It does reveal, I go back to the fact that once you know that it's Lois.
Yeah. You figure out Clark.
It has to compromise Clark on some level.
Yeah. And again, with the whole thing that Luther did to everybody, if Jimmy ever figured out that Lois was Superwoman, I don't think he wouldn't rat her out. Right. He wouldn't expose it because he's, friends with them, but that would immediately think Clark is Superman. He's like, if Superwoman is Lois Lane, is Clark Kent Superman? And just that thought right there would, detonate the thing in his head and that'd be it.
Right.
So so it's like, on one hand, I do say, oh man, poor guy, but they have to do this. And I love the fact that it was Clark monitoring it saying, we got incoming, time to go. And Lois like, poor Jimmy, and they take off.
Yeah.
It was absolutely brilliant.
You're making an interesting point. Would that override the thing that was keeping them from knowing the secret or, whoever discovered that? It would be interesting to see how that would play out. Because the conundrum would be, if Lois is Superwoman, at the very least, Superman knows she's Superwoman, and Clark would have to know, right? Her husband would have to know. So then you start making the connections. How would that work? I'm wondering if we're going to see that at some point.
Yeah. Well, because you think back to when Perry had his stroke.
Yeah.
He was in Smallville at the Kent home.
Yeah.
And he was just like because it was before they realized what was going on. And he's like, oh, Superman, you're here. Young Superman, you're here too. Why are you both at the Kent house? And that's when it really dawned. That's when it clicked in Perry. And that's when he had the stroke.
Yeah.
That's when Clark and them realized that everybody's brain was erased of the secret and that there was this time bomb sitting there. So again, this is a little thing that, I love that this little side note got me thinking, because initially I was like, oh man, that kind of stinks what Lois is doing. But again, I like how they're taking this one step further. And also, as you said earlier, it's a great way for Lois to really hide she's Superwoman. If, Lois Lane, the editor, saying, hey, go get the picture, and Superwoman is fleeing off and Supercorp is protecting her identity and all that, it adds to the fact that Lois Lane can't be Superwoman.
I love this page where they use the Superman symbol to show that they've had other adventures.
Yeah.
Just to kind of give this sense of, yes, we have this adventure right now, but they're a little more seasoned than we're showing you on screen. Like, they've done some things together, some significant things in different locations. Lois has been through some things. And I like that she's talking about her training from her dad. It's like, I'm not new to combat. I'm not new to fighting. My dad helped prepare me for this because he was trying to help me to be able to defend myself. So she walks in with some skills. And that was a good thing to establish, I think, early on, too. I do like Clark's caution, where Clark's sitting there saying, hey, I feel we should be cautious considering we just don't know, like, what's going to happen with this and what does that look like? It is an interesting piece. Mercy's saying it, Clark's saying it. What does it mean when you're a human and you have these? But Lois's growing confidence in the powers is something like, I could see myself being in that situation, or you're at a certain point in time, you're like, this is cool.
Yeah.
There comes a point in time where you almost have to, you want to stop holding back because you want to embrace it and thrive in it. Like, how could you not? It's like a great piece of candy, right? It's like, you gotta, I don't know, I want a little more of that.
And again, when she's talking about just flying and just everything dealing with, what the little extra stuff on the powers. I love that the one panel was like, you never told me the air smelled different up here. And just the way they have her drawn. Again, this was a great little, it's a small little panel, but for me, it was an absolute, like, yes, I love this, because she has that peace and calm on her face as she's saying it, and it is a little something different, that, again, she's up, and again, that flying, that idea of flying, would be absolutely brilliant. That 100% weightlessness, just that floating on air, and she's talking about the air is different up here. Even it's something that was a really cool little moment in the issue that I loved.
It's an exceptional attention to detail.
Yes.
Because those things, as far as if you're with the overarching big story that we're leading to in this, you could ignore those things and you could just kind of keep moving along, getting that story going and giving us a lot more big fights and big pop moments. This issue's special because it does that kind of stuff. It gives the right amount of time to those elements. It's an exceptional attention to detail that I just love because I feel like I'm living it with Lois. And as a geeky fan, it's one of the things I love the most in comics is when you get this sense like this is really happening. And they do that in this in a way that I think is just really awesome.
Oh God, yeah. Now, we get the boom and they got to run and people are running from fire. And I loved, again, they're going in, they're divide and conquer. Lois has got crowd control. Superman's going in front. And I love just that. What is it? Dear God. The look on Clark's face, then the power of the page flip, you see Hellborn Doomsday. And I'm like, oh, that is awesome.
Can we call him Flamin' Hot Doomsday, please?
Flamin' Hot, yes, fine. I'm, call
Cheetos, I'm sure, would be okay with it. It's like,
yeah. I love this. I absolutely love this look. And again, when they initially created Doomsday, I thought they did a brilliant job with slowly revealing him how he was wrapped up. And as the fight was going on more and more, and then you get that final thing where you see him full on, full Doomsday. This right here is absolutely brilliant because, again, every time Doomsday dies, he gets stronger. He gets more powerful. He gets more dangerous. And I love seeing this Doomsday that escaped from hell, now is even worse than he was before. I love this.
Yeah, and that's the piece. Like, they're analyzing Doomsday, and I like that Mercy's there, and Mercy's recognizing this is urgent. We need to bring in backup. Which I'm like, I was thinking of you when I read it. I'm like, yep. Oh, Jim's going to love that page because it's like she's immediately like, let's bring in the League. I love Lois's reaction. That single panel where you see her eyes wide. This is the being that killed her husband. She held her husband's dead body during those sequences. And this thing is back. And to your point, more powerful. That reaction was so pivotal. I'm glad we shot to that iconic classic shot of her holding him like that. I felt like there was just a great sequence. Then her shift to anger. This is somebody who's like, this is not happening again, and I owe you some payback. Because what she went through with that was, I mean, it's shattering. The loss of a loved one that you're that close to is shattering for somebody. She's fortunate the fact that her husband came back and they managed to get through all that. But if you think about the whole rise of the Superman storyline, where she had multiple people that she thought had elements of her husband that ultimately she thought might be in some way the return of her husband. And, you know, the end result being that no, it was something else on top of it. To see her now being able to all these years later, being able to react to that in this capacity where like, oh, wait a minute, I can do something.
Yeah.
That is so Lois Lane and so cool.
Dude, man. And I'll tell you, it was funny because you mentioned joking around about me calling for backup. I loved what they did because it wasn't just calling for backup. You know, it's Mercy's like, contact the Watchtower. We need the League on standby in case this gets bad. Mm-hmm. They weren't dropping in the League. The League is the backup plan.
Yes.
I loved how they did that. And then the next page, you got Clark telling Lois, you know, fall back, you rally the other, you know, the rest of the family and get in. She's like, oh no, I'm here now. We're doing this. And I love that Clark immediately accepted that, didn't argue with her. He's like, then follow my lead.
Yeah.
You know, again, Clark recognizing this is his partner. You know, this is his equal. Not just equal in power, but equal in her ability to identify the problem, saying, yes, I can help out this. And I love the fact that Clark initially throws out the, you know, fall back and regroup with the family and then bring the family in to, okay, two of us, tag team, let's do this.
You know, that shows the seasoning of Superman, because there's two ways that can go. You either bicker that out or you drop all ego and you start working together. If you're bickering it out, Doomsday is going to have an advantage, a major advantage, because you are not working as a squad. He recognized, all right, she's determined on this piece. I either embrace it or I hurt it. And I thought that was just a really good, this again, attention to detail, thinking that writing through, what does this mean? It showed a different level of polish. And we get this great sequence with the two of them. Then everything freezes. I don't know why with the time trapper in the beginning, I didn't see this coming, but that when that freeze happened, I was like, oh, man, I knew who it was right away when it happened, but I did not expect it. And I just love the way that the tonally, everybody else goes gray. Everything else goes gray except for the fire from Doomsday. And time's completely frozen for Superman. And he's figuring it out, like panel by panel. Pacing in this, really, really good.
Yes. Oh, big time. And again, you know, this, you know, for me, again, I didn't know who Time Trapper was. So you have this opening segment and they're like, oh, okay, so this is from before. Mm-hmm. Nice. Now we're caught up in that. And I loved how this played out.
And I love the visual of Time Trapper, like with the chains floating around and things like that. This idea that this being has evolved and continued to become more powerful. It kind of matches the reveal of who it actually is.
Yes.
You know, and I think that's something that's important, is showing that the continued evolution of these characters, and that part works really, really well.
And again, another art detail that I absolutely loved was the look of shock on Clark's face when Time Trapper drops his hood. Mm-hmm. And again, power of the page flip. On one page, we've got Clark going, how? And the next page, you're like, Doomsday. Oh, God, dude, I'll tell you. First time reading this, I cheered at this point.
Yes,
I absolutely just like, woohoo! Had a moment like, oh my God, I love this story. You know, this for me was something that was absolutely brilliant.
The other piece, too, is I really like that he's talking to Superman about the fact, have you talked to her about the fact that you're going to watch her wither and die? Like, that piece, it's a tragic part of the Superman story, right? The idea that, like, this dude could potentially live forever. And what does that look like? And I like stories with immortals. You and I both were fans of like the Highlander series and that kind of stuff. I've always loved that kind of concept. And I like when you explore this idea of the vampire stories do this very well too. This idea that if you fall in love with humans and, you know, people who have a limited lifespan, but you're going to outlive them, it's not just going to be outliving them for a few years. It's going to be outliving them for lifetimes.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? And how do what does that mean for them to know that, like, you're going to move on again? Will you fall in love with somebody else? Will you, have a whole new life with somebody else? And what does that mean for ours and our legacy and those type of pieces? I love that he's bringing that piece into it. And it's something that's just really, really cool in this. And it goes with that manipulation you were talking about earlier. It's subtle.
Yes.
But it's happening here. And I love the visual of this version of Doomsday. I didn't know that I wanted Time Trapper to be Doomsday until I saw this. And I was like, oh, that's a clever way of handling this. And I'm going to be curious to see where this goes in the future. I hope we get a Legion story eventually.
Oh, that'd
that
be
kind
awesome.
Of addresses this. Yeah.
Legion tie-in.
Yeah.
100% would be, perfect on that. And
I'm missing the Legion. I would love a real, I think you need to have the right writer to bring that kind of epic, futuristic sci-fi drama into it again. But man, that's something that the DC universe, if you introduce it the right way, man, the Legion could be a great series. I would love to see a Legion series back. This cover for issue number 20 with the hand just coming out, the Doomsday hand. So sweet. What I've always loved about Doomsday is these spikes that come out all over the place. And they look like they're strategically placed for what the reason they are, to do damage. And it just looks threatening. But the power of having Superman and Superwoman in the background looking at this, I just love these foreground shots like this. These are epic. Like, I love when I see covers that I'm like, I've started framing. I've told you this before. I started framing covers, and getting them signed and stuff like that. There's a few variants where I've just framed them without signatures just because they've been unique. And I'm like, oh, I kind of want that to be showcased. And because I can always take down the frame and pull it out if I have the good fortune of meeting the artist at some point in time, or, anyone on the creative, just to get it signed. But there are so many covers now that are just really, really cool. The trade has some variant covers that are in there, which it's a cool variant cover. And the variant cover was by Dan Panosian. And if I'm butchering his last name, I apologize, because it's a shot of Superwoman kind of opening the shirt, with the Superman symbol in it. And, seeing Lois in that light, it's a beautiful shot of Lois. Yeah. And the artwork relating to Superman right now is just top notch. But we jump right into the story. And, Doomsday now is having this very lucid conversation with Superman about the creators and when this idea of being this ultimate weapon, and ultimately his journey and him analyzing his journey. It is one of those things where I'm trusting what he's saying, but I'm putting quotes around trust because there's clearly an agenda here. So it's interesting to feel that sense of, I feel like he's telling the truth, but I also feel danger. And I'm suspicious, and all the right feels that you should have in a dangerous villain storytelling are here. And it works really, really well. I also love the letter work with these orange panels. I mean, the orange, letter boxes. Yeah. It just adds this sense of just something being a little different, something be a little opposing. Just really good creative choices in this, in how they've been framing this up.
That full splash page, where the creative is at. Oh, yeah. I loved that one especially because that shows all the variation on the fights. Not only that we've seen, because we saw the one Superman decked out, but we're seeing future battles. You're seeing an older Superman versus Doomsday. You're seeing what looks to be the Legion against Doomsday. You're seeing the Superman who absorbed into the sun coming back to fight Doomsday. I loved how this shows the different Superman versions of the fights to come. And not only, hey, guess what, Superman? You've got this fight. You've got more to look forward to. Good luck.
This interesting piece as far as Doomsday knows that, the next death is potentially an evolution that is going to next level, and in just a very different way. Like, if I'm Time Trapper now, where do I go next? Yeah. And I like how scary that feels. And it's something because the danger is now he's so powerful that really hard to kill, but wants it for all, he wants it. I don't want to say for the right reasons, but he wants it because I can be a god. And then the question becomes, but do we want that? I don't want him to be Time Trapper. But
pass on that.
Yeah.
Again, it's kind of like when we were talking last issue, Lena trying to get Lex to remember the old Lex. No.
Yes. Yes.
Do we want Doomsday to become a god?
Yeah.
I'm going to say hard pass on that one.
Thinking this is Spinal Tap. This one goes to 11, but it shouldn't.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the one line I loved in this conversation between them, where in Doomsday's like, yeah, time's in flux, and I arrived a bit early.
Yeah.
You still have your right eye, meaning Zod hasn't come here. I read that. That was another moment. I was like, oh, yes, Zod. Anytime you get a Zod story, I always cheer. We're getting Doomsday. We had a jacked up Doomsday and Zod. Oh, my God. Thank you.
I love when Joshua Williamson teases.
Yeah.
Like the Flash run, the reason why I loved it so much was there was a lengthy run there, right? I love when writers are given an opportunity to get a decent chunk with a character and they get a chance to set things up, whether they play out the way that they're spelled out or not. Like, do I want Superman to lose his right eye? No, I really don't.
No,
but that danger, that sense of potential future happening, I want to see that play out.
Yes.
Whether the outcome of this story allows that to happen or not, who knows? But I really like that with time travel and things like that there is a thread right now that is being laid out by Time Trapper that I'm like stretching out the thread like anybody can see this. But there is a thread going right now with Time Trapper that I think is really, really sharp and I want to see play out. And this is what you should be feeling as a geeky fan. Like, I want to see this be a thing. His power, Superman's getting defiant with him. And he's like, I don't care who you are. No one threatens my friends. It's a very Superman moment. In an instant, Time Trapper's at his throat and he humbles almost Superman. What a powerful couple of panels there when you see that, because Superman at this point, we've seen, Superman continue to evolve, right? That moment really gives a sense. He tossed him down to the ground like he was nothing, like a rag doll, which is reminding us again, Time Trapper's Doomsday. This is in a highly evolved Doomsday. I loved seeing that sequence to get an idea of why we should not want him to evolve further. We don't want him where he's at now. We don't want him next level beyond this.
I love the fact that it wasn't just a mental evolution for Doomsday.
Right.
He is faster and stronger because he moved faster than Clark could move. So we're talking Flash level speed.
Yes.
With Superman's strength and power. Well, actually above, be higher than Superman power.
Sure.
So I loved seeing that moment. And again, it was a cool thing where he's like, just because I'm evolved, don't think I'm above physical violence. I loved seeing that and further adding how dangerous Time Trapper is. You think, flaming hot Doomsday is something. Oh no. Oh no, he's not.
Right.
Time Trapper is the ultimate enemy here. And I love the fact that, this is like a, oh my God kind of moment,
He's an example of when you put too much flavor in your chips. I did like the bit where he dangling a carrot to try and lead Superman his way, saying, hey, I want to show you, though. I'm kind of on the up and up here. I'm going to give you a head starting on the older version of me. And whips him back in. We get a beautiful sequence here. I am a Christopher Reeve movie geek. Anytime you do like the whip around this planet kind of thing, just to show Superman speeding up and remind us the fact that this is a guy who could turn the planet backwards on its axis, is super cool. I love that he's going with the axis, for the purpose of using that gravity to increase his speed for the punch on Doomsday. That was so cool. I loved the way that played out. I didn't really quite grasp, I thought he was flying to them, which he is, but I like the idea that he's like, no, we're going to whip around a couple of times and I'm coming in hard and strong. That was awesome. Really, really well done.
I also love the fact that his knuckles are bloodied over it.
Yes. Yes.
Because again, he's hitting He's hitting Hellfire, which is magic. Plus, he's also hitting Doomsday, which is harder than him and or as hard as him, depending on where this level's at. So it would draw blood. It would hurt Superman just to throw that punch.
Yeah.
That was something I absolutely loved in there. Again, little attention to art details on this story were absolutely brilliant. This, again, we've said before, we're going to keep saying it. The story, I love this story. The art team is 100% part of the reason I love this story. So if it doesn't sound like I'm giving the art team enough credit, oh God, no. The art team on this, the full creative process, the writing, layouts, art team, editor, you name it, everybody involved in this book created an absolute brilliant story.
The panel where it says it was just one round and we are looking up like we're tiny, from behind Superman and seeing this imposing Doomsday. Camera perspective on this piece, as far as like storyboarding and filming. Why do comics work so well in film? People are so caught up in there's too much superhero film, that type of thing. No, there is not. It's just we need ones that are different, that just kind of give you that vibe. Superman showed us that just recently. Like, hey, when you get it right, you want to see it. And I'm hoping Fantastic Four does it this week, because I feel like this is going to be a summer of like reminding people why these films are fun to watch. It's the same thing with animated films and anime and manga and manga being converted into anime. When these things are storyboarded right, you get camera angles and shots that you want to see animated. And I feel like this perspective right now, I'd love to see it animated like this and actually see that imposing Doomsday coming up the way that he is, because I just feel it would be just a striking animated visual. We're still getting animated features, and I hope we continue to get unique explorations with animation like this, because I think it's something that DC Warner's been doing really well, has been doing original movies, but then also taking popular stories and doing stuff like this. I would love to see another attempt at some form of Superman and Doomsday on the big screen, with an animated feature like this. Just because this looks so good. Superman again using Superwoman to say, listen, I need you to take care of the Doomhounds right now, so that way he can focus on Doomsday. It's a smart divide and conquer that he's doing here. And Mercy basically saying, listen, I can help you here. I need you to trust me. We need you to buy time for Project Deadbeat, because I think we can do something to help you out here. I need you to buy me time for this. And Superman was first like, it's too risky, but then she does that piece. Do you trust me?
Yeah.
And that evolution of the relationship with Mercy, I am really afraid at some point in time that he's not going to be able to trust Mercy. I feel like that's coming. And it's one of the things that I really like right now is that this trust has grown. I love Supercore. I'm with you, but I feel like there's going to come a time, and I'm going to hate seeing it because of the fact that this is so good to see this squad working together when you have big stories like this.
Yeah.
And this is really, really a great use of them.
I know we've talked in the past, if Lex could ever get over his issues with Superman,
they'd be the perfect team.
These two actually work together, it would be unbelievable. And we're seeing that with Supercorp, and we're seeing that with Mercy. And again, I completely agree with you. I love that moment when she's like, we've got to evacuate the city. Already on it, boss. We need let's initiate Project Deadbeat. We got to do this. And I love seeing Steelwork also working on, evacuating the people. And I love that Metropolis has protocols already in place. Mm-hmm. They already have, because you see him sitting, you see the one cop saying, okay, people, you know the drill. Go to your evac location. That means you've got a location. If something happens, if an Omega level threat happens, please proceed to your designated zone. I love the fact that Metropolis has that in line. It's one of those funny things, because we've talked in the past how, if we lived in the DC universe, would we want to be in one of these cities? And I've always said I wouldn't even look at Gotham on a map, much less go live there. But Metropolis is one of those cities I would like to visit, and it's moments like these that make me go, would I want to visit it? I don't know. It's this kind of stuff happens to Metropolis a lot.
I just went to Iceland, and in Iceland, they've had some volcano issues. And honestly, the people couldn't have been more lovely. It's such a lovely place to visit. I highly recommend visiting it. But there was evacuations recently because of, volcano related issues. They were talking about that when we were there. I'm like sitting there, I'm like, wait, we're on the cusp of a what now? And, I get, that's your home and people live through that kind of stuff. I was connecting that to stuff like this where I'm like sitting here like, oh, this is kind of what it'd be like. If you're little Superman Doomsday could have a fight at any point in time while we're sitting here and enjoying Metropolis.
Yeah.
This storyline does a really, really good job with that. Steelworks coming in at this point is a reminder of this thriving universe that spun out of Superman, that Steelworks is now on the scene, and we've got the backup. As part of the Superman family, backup is starting to show up on the scene now. And I love Steel. I love the character Steel. We get some great Lex Luthor moments in this. And it's really, really intriguing to see Superman saving Lex. I know you want to say something. Just hang on for 1 second. Something that strikes me right now and why I love this relationship so much. We got to see the tragedy of the Lex Luthor Superman relationship in Smallville, right? Why is that show I think resonates with so many fans for so long is it was that line that Lex threw out saying our friendship's going to be the stuff of legend, right? And it's the tragedy of that friendship because you get to see when those two were working together, when they were on the same page, they were doing amazing things together and until they weren't.
Right.
And you see the pieces that you mentioned earlier where it's like these two, if they could have just gotten it together, oh my gosh, it'd be magic. What they could do for not just for Metropolis, what they could do for the world, working together. There's differences being their strengths. If they could somehow work that all out. This whole sequence was seeing Lex, good guy Lex, and I'm with it's because it's Lex. You can't help but question it.
Yeah.
At a certain point in time, I did love see this rescue and what Lex was doing there and everything about this sequence. And I'm sorry, you got something you want to say, so please go.
This is the sequence that convinced me that Lex truly doesn't know. This is not Lex Luthor pretending that he doesn't have his memory. Because again, if Lex was faking it, he would have run in there and done exactly but how he handled the pending doom would have been different. He would have either called to got Superman's attention or done something, other than just, you hold the kid, say, I'm sorry, keep your eyes closed. That's the Lex Luthor faking that he doesn't remember wouldn't have said that line.
Right.
He would have said something different. Either it would have been a call to Superman or something to continue on the fake that he's playing out, or, scrambled to find a different way to save the kid. He wouldn't have done that. I think that for me, these pages here are what locked in my head saying, Lex is 100% not faking. This is actually Lex Luthor actually had his brain fried, at the end of Absolute Power. So I was like, dang, that is cool. And I love this sequence because again, this shows what nice guy Lex Luthor could actually do. He ran and he sacrificed his life, for this little kid, even though Soup saved him at the last minute. Lex, was going in there to help the kid, not thinking, Soup, is going to rescue me.
Part of the success of Absolute Power was the fact that story did not stay in a bubble. It's there's been resonance and impact from that story. To me, an event should be something that you feel the impact of later, and it leads to storytelling. That has led to, my gosh, in the Superman book alone. Not to mention, are you reading Aquaman at all?
I've just started reading it, yeah.
So another book that has just a lot of impact from Absolute Power. I like seeing when events do this. This is the kind of thing. And seeing it here, it's led to such great storyline. This moment with Lois is, I just think, a great moment because it's Doomsday. Doomsday can hurt Superman. Doomsday can hurt Superwoman. And we see the shoulder. This is the shoulder injury that Lois suffers. And he throws Lois aside. This is the man's wife. I don't care how strong or powerful she is right now. You just hurt and threw the man's wife. This is a different kind of... That Superman that's screaming Doomsday right there, that's a different Superman. And I loved every bit of the emotion in that sequence. That was a great panel. And it only works if you have that build to that panel. I mean, it's like somebody hurt my wife, you're going to see a different side. And there's something to that. There's pivotal people in your life where that switch should flip, right? On some level. And I felt like this captured all of that. This was really, really good.
Well, I'm remembering back to during the death of Superman, the one fight sequence when Clark really just started opening up, and every time he was punching him, glass was shattering from the sheer energy of it. And Olsen, I loved Olsen had the lines like, "Whoa, I've never seen the big guy that pumped before." And Olsen caught that and said, "Wow, Superman's going to a whole nother level." That right there was that other level. That was Soup doing it. And I loved immediately after that, we've got the Justice League's heavies all ready to go. They've got all their heavy hitters ready to go. Batman is sitting there, finger on the button transporter, ready to send them down if they need to. That for me was a great sequence. And then we get the Super Court Hail Mary coming in. I was like, oh, this is awesome. This right here, great page of just, this isn't just going to be, okay, Superman saved the day. Oh no, we've got the full team going. And Bats is already thinking of, if this current team I've got alignment doesn't go, who do I bring in next?
Are you
already planning that?
Are you reading Justice League?
Yeah.
The way that it's functioning right now, he has every bit of what you're just saying.
Yes.
So yes, to everything you're saying, where that he's got A squad and B squad and C squad and D squad. I mean, there is squad after squad that he can have ready to go based on what he learns from the first squad. Yes. So it is the way that Justice League functions right now. I think Justice League is super cool right now with what they're doing. And I love their use in this because in one panel, you get what you're saying. And it works so good there. This use of mercy, again, when we get to see Parasite, and Parasite's really meant to be the opening salvo of this, to really provide the opportunity for Mercy's plan to play out. I like that this doesn't go the way Mercy thought it was going to go.
Yeah, I feel bad, but again, brilliant storytelling.
Yeah.
This 100%, this opening this sequence when Mercy's riding on the back of Parasite and like, dinner is served. And you're just like, oh yeah. And again, Parasite being the hero. I love the fact that Parasite is a member of Supercorp. How Parasite has been actually kind of...
Can I correct you there for a second? Was.
Well, hold on, buddy.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Oh, man. And again, in the fight, I love how he jumps on him and he's draining him. And Clark's like, hey, Rudy, don't kill him. He'll come back stronger.
Yes.
But they don't have to worry about that because that is, for me, one of the most horrific scenes I've seen in a comic book. And we've seen a bunch of really horrific stuff. I loved when Doomsday rips Rudy in half, the splatter on Clark's face, the look on his face, the look on Mercy's face, like, Rudy, no. I love this page. This is such a horrific and horrible page, but it's absolutely brilliant.
It's a masterclass.
Yes.
These two issues have been so far a masterclass as far as pacing and storytelling and just grabbing detail. I don't always get a chance to spend time looking at extras, but I love them when they're there. This is something where I'd love to see a script. Like, what did that look like?
Oh, good.
Because comic writers just do such a great job. What was on the script? What was artistic choice? What was a collaboration? I'd love to know what that looked like to achieve this because everybody's nailing it. And this is what happens when you've got a creative team. We've talked about this before, that there's books where you've got a terrific artist and you've got a terrific writer and they're working together on it and they're working together and they do a great job, but you don't feel that energy. And when you get something like this where there's clear energy between the writing and the art, you get something where it's like, wow, this is just blowing me away. And this is one of those stories. I'm really glad we're doing this story.
Yeah. And again, I love the look of Doomsday after ripping Rudy in half. Just that sheer jacked up, just monster.
Yeah.
Once again, it's that, how could Superman win this? I love when you get those moments where you're just like, he can't beat him. That's impossible. And there's so many times, in like the Death of Superman story, you knew Superman was going to die, so you saw the monster and you're like, yeah, I can see that guy killing Superman. Once again, we're in a moment where like, yeah, I can see him killing Superman. We're going to have another Death of Superman going on.
There is a problem with Superman, which this is bringing back to light. The red levels rising.
Yeah.
So because of the fact that this is happening, Superman's red levels are rising, and this is causing an issue where we could be losing Superman in this sequence. And I like how Mercy's trying to stop him at the moment. And you see, that look when Superman, has him down, the look in Superman's eyes and just the red overtaking him, it's a very, very striking and powerful moment that if he didn't stop there, I don't know that he would have. And I do think that this might have led to an evolution of Doomsday.
This right here could have been the evolution. And I love the fact that it's Lois who's like, Superman, it's over. And it's Lois's voice that's able to bring Clark back.
Yeah.
And that, again, brilliant artwork, everything you're saying, how when the red Fex takes over Soup and he's got that Kryptonian red, going on inside him. I love that. And then after that sequence, when Clark's like, I'm okay, but Metropolis, you see the blood again, bloody hands, because he was just wailing on Doomsday with everything he had. He was not pulling back any punches. So naturally his hands are going to be bloody. I love that. I absolutely love that. And again, the tranquilizer that they're doing, which is the Black Mercy Venom. Again, I love the usage of Black Mercy whenever they pull it in there, because it is that thing that could maybe hold Doomsday for a little while. Maybe.
Well, I like that they're saying they know this isn't going to last. This is a temporary solution. So I really like that aspect of it. They're walking in not blind. This is due to history. We know that this is not going to be permanent. Yeah. This is buying us some time to come up with, hopefully, a more permanent solution to our problem. So really, really good. The epilogue with them, with Superman and Lois, is really, really good because they have the talk and they're talking through, what this means. And she's having the conversation with Jimmy and trying to cover those pieces. And honestly, I think covering brilliantly well. She's trusting a lot on the fact that the things that they've put in place to keep the identity secret are going to keep working. So she's got to be the right editor-in-chief and keep Jimmy going in this process. She's also dealing with the fact that I need to take some time off right now, just a little bit, because I can't go into work like this. And her and Clark having that reflection afterwards together. I love sequences with Clark and Lois.
Yeah.
For anybody who thinks that the super marriage doesn't work, I cite this work as an example of it only works if they're a married couple. You can do this with two other characters and it works just fine. But when they're married, and this is now another thing that they're dealing with as a married couple, it just adds a different flavor. I think you have to be very careful and how many characters you do this kind of thing with. But with Clark and Lois, oh my gosh, the marriage between the two of them, I think, has been nothing but an enhancement of storytelling, a growth of storytelling. And I love these two together.
Yes. Oh, I'm echoing 100% what you're saying. And again, I love how this issue ends, where again, Lois and Clark are having the conversation and he's telling her all about what Time Trapper Doomsday is telling him.
Yeah.
And I love just that moment of, where when Lois, when Clark's like, I have to ask, what's scarier than Doomsday? What a great way to end this issue, because we see what's scarier than Doomsday coming. That for me, again, this, you said a couple minutes ago, this is a masterclass. This is 100% a masterclass on how to tell a story. They've been seriously going through just these two issues going on and continuing on. This I am so loving this story. This right here is becoming one of my favorite Superman stories. This, for me, is getting put on the same shelf that the Jeff Johns Up, Up, and Away did.
Yeah.
You know how much I love that story. That, for me, is one of my, has been all-time favorite Superman stories. This right here, just because of how they're balancing so many different pieces. What's scarier than Doomsday? How do you take a Doomsday story and make it more scary? Well, we're doing it right here. What's a great Lex Luthor story? Oh, we're getting that as well. Here's a great Lex Luthor story for you. Here's a great Lois story. Here's a great, Justice League story. They're taking all of that and putting it into this story. And none of the pieces are getting downplayed. None of the pieces are getting, short-sighted because they got so much stuff going on. This is a brilliant balancing act between balancing a very large cast of characters, inside this story. Oh God, do I love this thing.
This is also an example on how you do a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Every cliffhanger is an example of where monthly books work, where if you do the right cliffhangers, you will just make it exciting. Like, I gotta get next issue. I can't wait for next issue. This is what comics are all about. When we talk about singles and floppies and why they're so important to the industry, you have to have the kinds of stories that drive you for that immediate fix, that urgency. And this one does it so well. That closing where we're like sitting here like, who are these guys and what's going on with them? And they're wearing a doomsday, this one's throwing on a doomsday outfit. Who is that? And what is their motivation? I loved that aspect of it. The cover for Superman 21 is another breathtaking cover because you get to see this really cool moment on the moon with Clark and Lois, on their date, and Doomsday is still in, an imposing figure on that. It was just a great opening. That Dan Mora's layouts are just really, really great. The alternate cover that's in the collect edition, the variant, is by Chris Samney and Mike Spicer. And it's got kind of that Darwin Cook style, and I'm not insulting the artwork. It's that classic kind of look to it with Clark in the fortress, like reaching for the crystals, in the front, and just different variations in the background. It's really, really a beautiful piece of art. And I'm not downplaying Samney's work. I'm complimenting it because I love those artists that are able to capture that kind of, you can't place the time period style, if you know what I'm talking about, where it feels classic but doesn't feel dated. It's that.
It's a noir kind of feel to it.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah. The reason why I'm not going to noir, and I'm not disputing you. On my end, when I think noir, I think a little bit darker.
Okay.
With noir, but I get where you're going. So you're kind of placing it the same way. I look at noir as kind of being a darker edge. So in my mind, by the way, so I'm not, we each have our own different interpretations. That's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's something classic about this, that it has that sense of hope and wonder.
Your comparison, Darwin Cook is another brilliant. I agree. When I see that style, I think that as well. Mm-hmm. And again, no insult on, we're not saying no insult on the artist there. It's we kind of piece that air. And again, it's that kind of explaining to people who don't have it physically in front of them.
Yes. Yeah. Samney's style is it's definitely not, he's not a copy. It's not Darwin Cook light. I don't mean that. I am not trying to imply that at all. It's just more, it scratches that itch for me. As far as, and I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So the final issue we're covering today, Jim, we get to see, I love that this kicks off with Lois Lane with the punch.
Yeah.
Do you have Batman's phone number? I was glad to see Supergirl in this. I'm very Supergirl happy right now. Have you read any of her series yet?
Just the first issue.
It was good, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm enjoying seeing the expanded Superman universe rolling out. Did you read Crypto?
I have not read Crypto yet. I got to read that.
Crypto's fun too.
Yeah.
So I'm very Superman. I'm just a couple books I wanted to shout out right now. If anybody listening to this, don't want to spoil anything, but we've got a decent Superman library going on right now. Kara in this is an example of what I was talking about earlier. I love seeing her costume and Lois's costume together.
There's something unique about each one. And I think that's really, really critical when you're doing this, because there comes a point in time where characters get lost when they have all of these matching outfits where they're the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And to me, there should be a style that matches the character, that makes them set apart. You see them coming, if that makes any sense. And I really love the style choices for Supergirl's outfits. Supergirl over the years has enjoyed some really good costumes.
Yes.
You know, there's been a few of them that have been misses, but like very few. This is an example of one that I really like the choice of this outfit for Supergirl.
I like the more mature adult outfit on Supergirl. And again, I'm not going to knock the skirt and all that kind of look. I know there have been a lot of variations on that. And
sure,
there have been some people who have been really pro, some people have been anti. For me, I'm like, it was a good costume. It was the time, but I like the fact that they've evolved her costume, you know, and again, this is a more mature costume. This fits where she's at right now. And I like that.
I will tease this. If you're a fan of Supergirl outfits, the Supergirl series, the storyline, there's a reason Supergirl outfits are part of the storyline, and I'll leave it at that. They do a really good homage to the history of Supergirl in it. So it's a good book. I've read the first 2 issues, and it's a good book, especially for that type of piece. I do like seeing these two fighting together, and this is a chance for, there's a point to, and I think we do this as guys, I think women need this too. My wife needs it, I need it. Like you and I have a certain level of conversation that my wife and I aren't going to have. There's something to talking to a friend, and you can have conversations that you're going to have with your spouse, but it's going to be different than what you have with your spouse. This shift of, Lois having a moment with Kara and being able to have those situations, again, adds this sense of reality. It's a different conversation than she would have had with Clark. Not keeping anything from Clark. It's not that she can't rely on Clark. It's not about that. It's about the different perspective, the different comfort level, the different interactions. They're just normal to have. And I love that this feels so real and genuine and authentic. The understanding of these characters that we're seeing in these issues is really paramount. You bring Supergirl in and you give us a moment. This is a moment here. And I love that because it could have been just a fight and you would have missed an opportunity for this. This was a moment and very character driven. Great to see where these characters are at. This is comfort food. So then when you flash back to Clark and Superwoman, you feel like their world's fleshed out and well-rounded. They feel more real and authentic. And I love that kind of stuff when they do it. This leading into Super Date Night. I love the title of this issue. I love the theme of this issue, the geeky choice. I love the attention to detail. How are we going to breathe? Which is a thing that came up there. And I love how everything was addressed in this storyline that would be hey, they left this out. They never, how are they breathing up there? We've got a guess. No, they took care of that piece because they knew the geeky question we'd ask.
Exactly. And again, it's, you just had this epic, oh my God moment. Let's calm things down. And I love that it fits as a story being told, but it also fits for Lois and Clark. Mm-hmm. Clark's recognizing Lois was just put through the ringer big time in her power test and dealing with all the new powers. We need to have a moment when we can back down. And I love the fact that they go to the moon so they don't hear all the people yelling, help me, help me, help me. Because that would distract them from date night. There's no way they would really be able to, enjoy and relax and not jump into the fray if like there was a 5-alarm fire happening. They'd have to do it just because of who they are. Up on the moon, they're not going to hear that stuff. Up on the moon, they can just relax and enjoy themselves. Yeah. And I love the fact that all these little pieces were put into this, put into what Super Date Night would be like. Well, it's just them hanging out. They're playing darts in a way. They're throwing massively large boulders at a target carved into the side of the moon, but it's still just darts. Just two people hanging out chatting. I love that.
What it's addressing, though, is exactly what Clark's trying to do here, and Lois is trying to do. there's a balance you need to find in your life. Actually, it's funny. You and I were talking a little bit about balance leading into this piece, not knowing that it really plays into what we're talking about here. Life is full of juggling and trying to find the right balance. And sometimes, actually, to the point of our conversation we were having earlier, sometimes you get it right. Sometimes you get it wrong, and you've got to go back and regroup and try to rework it. This is about that genuine thing of how are we Lois and Clark in all of this? We've got this new, like we are a husband and wife outside of this, dealing with our day jobs. We are a husband and wife in this, dealing with this full-time job. Where are we as a couple in all of this? How do we find us? How do we keep us a part of this and find that balance? And they're trying to do that. They're trying to have a genuine date night that has some romance, that has some interaction, that has some fun in there. And it's some of it they're getting right. And I like that some of it they're getting wrong, and they're addressing that in it. Yeah. That feels authentic too, right? Not every date goes well. Not every attempt at like recovering something goes well, but you keep trying. And you take the pieces that work. Well, as we were talking about earlier, there's something to be learned about this in real life. You take the pieces that work, and the pieces that didn't, you revise, regroup, and try to do it better. And I loved how this thematically just fits real life for all of us. There's something to be learned by this. And I like Lois is like, hold my cape, Smallville. And you get to see her, the gravity, the change up, those type of pieces. She's playing that all into this. You think anyone else has date nights this exciting? And I loved that piece. And I love how it leads to the interlude with Jimmy Olsen and Silver Banshee. I forgot. I don't know why. It wasn't on my radar. I'm like, oh yeah, that's still a thing.
Yeah. Well, again, I loved, no dialogue, just them, Netflix and chill. They're just watching a movie. That shows how exciting their date night is. And I like that. And again, I like how in the top part, they show Silver Banshee as Silver Banshee. They showed her bansheed out, but she doesn't walk around like that. So it's kind of a neat thing, just showing them just hanging out, watching movies and just chilling.
But take a look at the bottom panel with Jimmy and how we gradually get there. Jimmy's face.
Yeah.
Something's wrong, Houston. Look at Jimmy in the first panel, second panel, and the third panel. Look at those eyes.
I took it he was just watching a horror movie.
I feel like there's something else going on there.
Really?
We'll see.
Yeah, see, I just took it as they were watching a horror movie. And that's like, he's like,
I hope you're right.
I hope so too.
I feels like they took a whole page for that.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because you see how the shadow is changing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what. And maybe it is just...
What movie were they watching?
I don't know. That's why you're saying it's a horror movie. I'm like, where are you getting that's a horror movie?
Just because of the fear. And Silver Banshee would probably find a horror movie funny because she's Silver Banshee.
Yeah.
And Olsen would be like, is what I'm wondering. That is what I'm playing in my head.
I'm hoping you're right. I'm hoping there's not trouble in paradise. We'll see where that's going to go.
Yeah.
I like their relationship. I think
I really like, again, this Jimmy Olsen is a great Jimmy Olsen. This is going back to that Olsen bug from 52, where he was a bit of an adventurer, and there have been a couple variations on Jimmy Olsen that takes a photojournalist. They're risk takers. Traditionally, they're the guys who are running into fire zone, hot spots, and, conflicts with a camera, snapping pictures, hoping that they don't catch a stray bullet or hoping they're not targeted by the regime, as an American spy. Those are the people who take a lot of risks because they're snapping pictures, and maybe they get a picture of something they shouldn't have taken a picture of. And they're going to go for it. So I like seeing a Jimmy Olsen that's a little bit more of a risk taker, and not a golly gee, well, Chief, what do you mean me to do? No, I like this version. Again, when we talked about the movie, I love that movie version because he had a very realistic feel to him. This Olsen also has that real feel to him.
That's been more modern Jimmy Olsen.
Yes.
He's evolved into that type of character. And I think these characters do need to continue to evolve to be relevant to today. And that piece works. It's funny how it shows how I root for those characters, that when I see something that's a potential red flag, I worry for them. That's a success in the comics. The situation where we get to see Superwoman and Clark having these little adventures together, but her reflecting on, I'm seeing all of these amazing things. I'm doing all of these amazing things, and I want to write them. You had to have had a hard time as Superman not being able to write about everything that you did, and I really, because there comes a point in time where you're getting all these stories.
Yeah.
And I like when that happens, look, because I don't want to talk too much about the film, but the film alludes to some of this stuff. And, that's something that I thought was very complimentary to understanding their comic book relationship. I did like the crypto scene at the end, too. I'm so crypto happy right now that seeing the two of them play fetch with crypto, super fetch when you both have superpowers and the dog has superpowers has got to be outstanding.
That's got to be fun. That's got to be seriously. And again, they're flying, so that adds to the sheer joy of it. You're playing catch with the dog, which is always a plus, even if you're not a dog person.
Yeah.
You still enjoy it. Like, I'm more of a cat person, but I've played catch and fetch with a dog, and it's still fun. Because, you get the little, go ready, go boy, go, and, you just see the dog all excited to be playing catch with you. It's, you get, I'm like, yes, and I love this. And I love, as you said, how overlining it is. Lois having some really great moments about how, when she was editing the one person's piece, there was no point of view. It was all just conjecture. It was all just details, facts, and that's got to be tough for both of them not to say what actually happened. It was an interview with Superman, not Superman telling you what he was feeling, what he was, what was going through his head. That's the kind of stuff that I was like, I love the secret identity, but those are the kind of stuff that would be really cool for them to be able to do. Them actually saying this is what is going on.
Right. The quiet moments that they have, and I put quotes around quiet because they're sitting down together and talking about some very serious stuff. Work-life balance is something that I think we all struggle with, right? I mean, you know what that's like. We all do. I'm very guilty of the fact that in being a tech director for a school district, we cover a lot of ground. It's not just taking care of the teachers. We take care of all the departments in the district, including, maintenance, custodial, HVAC systems, transportation, all those types. So we cover a lot of ground. I'm very guilty of trying to do too many things at once, in the sense and not realizing that I have to put this project aside for now so I can wrap up these other ones. So that way I feel that sense of completion. When you've got too many irons in the fire going in once, what ends up happening is you're moving them all forward, but you're not getting that satisfactory conclusion of them. So, I have way too much jumbled in my head, as you well know if you've listened to this podcast for any period of time. I got a lot going on in my head. Sometimes I regurgitate it constantly. But seeing Superman dealing with, he's trying to get away from the doomsday conversation because he knows that stress is impacting him and this red kryptonite issue that he's facing. And this is really an important piece. You have to remember in a monthly book, I read those issues, but somebody may not have.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder of where was that red from before? Why was that red a problem from before? I'll tell you, it's right here. He was infected with red kryptonite and he's still dealing with that piece. So while he's trying to help his wife get kind of some balance with her own powers and concerns about what does this look like for somebody who's human, there's also what does this look like for me when I'm infected with red kryptonite? He's trying to find that stress balance here and this isn't working. He's still got doomsday on the brain, and that stress piece is a piece over there. I like that he's like, it's hard not to think about that monster. And I was thinking about my own work, and I know you've run into the same issue. There's times where you've got things piled up in what you're doing. You've times where we've talked about your stresses from tests you're doing at work and things like that. I've still got my quotas I've got to do for my regular job, but now we got testing of software over here that I'm doing as well. Those things weigh on you. This is where Superman's real, right? In these moments where we see these sequences and we're like, dude's dealing with a lot right now. And I love the real conversations he's having with Lois here. And, Lois is getting a chance to vent right now. That day when you two first met, it haunts me. I can never unsee what he did. For a long time, I'd close my eyes. I mean, and you see that sequence. It's the final battle between Superman and Doomsday. So iconic, those issues. You know, I remember real time when that book came out, you know, and you and I both had, you know, very strong experiences with that story when it came out. That is an example of, in our lifetime, this is something, if you're a comic book reader, there are certain points in time where, being a monthly reader of a comic, you get to be in real time a part of events that have unfolded, that these writers have crafted. They're touch points. You're like, I lived through that. I remember what it was like to read that for the first time and just be blown away.
Yeah.
And go, oh my God, they are really doing this. What does this mean? How do you undo it? Because we got to have Superman. How do you undo this? And it's such a cool thing when you've got that. To see their reflection years later on it, this is something you immediately connect with and go, wow, they're still impacted by this event. And rightfully so, because it was so huge at the time.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah, and I love how, you know, this is just the beginning of it. And I love how this is the lead-in for Clark revealing to Lois that finally what the time trapper told him, what Doomsday told him, that he is going to live forever and he is going to watch everybody he loves grow old and die. And I love just how, as he's laying this out, he's like, I'll be alone forever. I love the look on Lois's face where she's just like, whoa, that's dark.
Yeah.
You know, and that is, but the thing is, and again, I love how the fact that Lois is immediately there for him.
Yep.
You know, right, it has that initial moment and then it goes right into being there for Clark.
Yeah.
You know, and again, who knows what forever means? You know, who knows if he is immortal? Is he, you know, again, we did have to say, you know, Time Trapper, is he just laying a trap for Superman? You know, we don't know yet. You know, and I think that is a brilliant page. I love how, you know, they go in and they do a close up on Clark. They kind of do a little bit more shadow on his face, just adding to it. But the look on Lois's face is like, whoa, you know, and just as you get this moment, you get Amethyst coming in asking for help. And I love how they did that, you know, because you get this serious, oh my God moment. Okay, now we got to we got to lighten it up a little bit. Let's give a little action in there. Again, brilliant layout on the story.
Yeah, and I like that Lois is really shaken by this. And you see it in the sequence. She's like, I lost my appetite anyway. That isn't subtle. That's saying, like, this was big. It feels like it was big. I like the interludes, you know, in this issue. And I'm glad they don't do this every issue. It made this issue feel a little different. What is going on with Doomsday? You know, what does Black Mercy look like, and what's he dreaming about? In every dream, it's ripping apart Superman.
Yeah. It's destroying Superman in some way, shape, or form, or destroying a planet, or, you know, ending, you know, just, you know, death and destruction.
It's interesting that Superman's relationship with magic has evolved, and kind of seeing him reference that piece. Again, this is a great story. If you haven't been reading Superman in a while, it establishes some of the ground rules on where we're at with Superman. Magic still has an effect of sorts, but certainly not the level that it was before. And I like, you know, Superman's pointing that out. He's like, I'm still not a fan of people trying to hurt me with it. And Lois being the diplomat in this.
Yeah.
So Clark's in the middle of the fight. Lois, in the meantime, has worked out a treaty.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. I love when we've got, you know, we talk about Diana having that interesting sort of relationship with people, you know, and the kind of respect that she commands. This does not feel like something that the way that Wonder Woman would have done it. And I like that. I like that it feels like Wonder Woman would have been a diplomat and would have handled it with diplomacy, but it would have been different in its execution. This Superman-Superwoman relationship and how it worked out there, this would not have gone this way with Clark being there alone. Clark has his own level of diplomacy as well, but I like that while he was busy doing that, Lois is like, let's wrap this bad boy up.
Again, it's the Clark, you look at it, Clark was dealing with the two armies.
Right.
Lois went to the two leaders. Lois pulled the two leaders aside, said, hey, let's have a conversation here. Mm-hmm. They both did the same thing, but Lois handled it a little bit more efficiently.
Yep.
She was able to get the two people who needed to talk talking. And once she got them talking, the solution became easy.
She wouldn't have been able to do that if Clark wasn't doing what he was doing.
Right. Oh, God, no.
Because you can't, how do you pull the leaders aside? The armies are going to still come after you. Clark wound up being the perfect distraction. And that was really great. I did like seeing them reflect afterwards about the trade agreement and what it was going, and Clark pointing out that this is who you are. This is the reporter, Lois Lane. Your real superpower is your ability to get people to talk. And I like that we're seeing that play in. It's something that distinguishes Lois. We talked earlier, and you were really pointing it out very well, the fact that Lois has been that partner all along. This is the difference is she has powers now, but she's been that person. And I love that this story embraces those elements as they're going in. And, they're talking about dinner was wonderful, but this did not feel like a Lois and Clark date.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they had that honest conversation. This is an example of couples therapy.
Yeah.
And what a couple really needs to do. Sometimes you just need to talk, and it doesn't have to be gloom and doom. It has to be, let's try something else. This is the piece where I like it doesn't have to be A or B. What about C, D, E, and F? Remembering there's a full gambit of the alphabet. Let's try something else. I'll admit this next interlude worries me. It worries me in a very big way.
Okay.
Lex and Mercy having coffee together.
Yep.
I'm worried about Lex. I'm worried about Supercore. I'm worried about Mercy. I'm worried about where this is going to go. Is Lex's memory coming back? Is this a manipulation? If not, when Lex's memory comes back, what does this do? This is very, very dangerous. There's this part of me because it's Lex. I'm with you. I feel like his memory was genuinely gone. Did this recent event trigger something with Lex? Is this Lex being manipulative? It could be completely innocent, but I feel like it's not going to be a throwaway. This is somehow going to cause problems.
Yeah. And one of the things I loved about this sequence, again, I love when Lex comes in and she's like, Mr. Luthor, please call me Lex. I love that he keeps throwing that out there. Yep. Please call me Lex. I'm not Mr. Luthor. And I love the fact that he's sitting there saying, I was here to see my daughter, Lena, but I have to be honest, I came to see you. That, I love just that little bit right there, that little bit of, Lex being vulnerable, Lex being honest. There's something going on here, and I love that. And I was like, oh, that is so cool. But like you said, it's Luthor. And I love the fact that we're both thinking the same thing. Going,
oh, yeah.
It's Luthor. Is this legit? Is this real? I love that. And again, I'll tell you, first time reading through this, I 100%, last issue, I had that moment where I was like, that made me convinced that Luthor really didn't have.
I agree.
But reading this one, it always makes me pause because she's like, how'd you know my favorite? Even before, I didn't think you ever noticed. So is that Luthor remembering something from the past coming back? I don't know. I love this.
Yeah. I don't know either. It's going to be very, very intriguing where this goes. This could be completely innocent right now, but I feel it's there for a reason no matter what. This is something that's great when you have writers who are able to plan layered stories.
Yeah.
Where I'm going to drop something here right now. I think every interlude meant something. Every interlude was there for a reason. Every interlude is building to something that we need to be thinking about in the future. I will be honest, I always will geek out at the Smallville sign.
Yeah.
There's something about that, them going for a breakfast burrito. I like that Clark is sitting there saying, we should stop by my parents' house while we're in town. And I like that Lois is pointing out right now that I don't know that'd be the most exciting end for our date.
Yeah.
And I like that she is, pointing out right now that we kind of need Lois and Clark.
Yeah.
The city girl and a small town boy. Don't worry about forever, Clark. Just be here with me now. I love this thing. And there's something to be said nowadays. And I feel like it's something when we talk about work-life balance. Sometimes when you're so focused on the things that you need to do tomorrow and you're so focused on the things you need to do next week and doing all that, I am very guilty of this. You don't enjoy the present. Sometimes where this podcast is very therapeutic for me is when I'm doing this podcast, I'm enjoying the present. You know, it's like really embracing, enjoying this story. This is great messaging for today. I think we are so interconnected all the time. When I went to Iceland, I did something I've never done before. I did not bring my laptop. I have never done that in the last decade. You know, when I've gone on a trip, I always have my laptop with me. Just because, you know, as a tech director, I want to be connected. I can, get up in the morning and just do that one more thing. I'm not going to pretend I didn't respond to any emails because you got them on your phone. So I did do that, but just not having my laptop. I went for a long weekend deliberately because I wanted to avoid any kind of major shutdown to things that I'm doing. But, I went during the 4th of July weekend. So I took off of work on that Thursday. And because we got bumped on our flight, I didn't come back to work till the following Thursday. I have never taken that amount of time where I haven't had my laptop.
Yeah.
It was so good. I wasn't comfortable with it. I will tell you that. Because it's not just work. It's, stuff for the podcast. It's doing, there's so much stuff that is going. I was so much more present on the trip. And enjoying actually being in Iceland and enjoying that trip. I never do that. So seeing this moment with Lois, I'm like sitting here, I don't know, comics are still teaching me things,
Yeah.
and I think there's something to be said for this when you have these characters who are so well-rounded that are dealing with today, right? And they're dealing with today from their perspective and facing some of those challenges. You can learn something from them. This is a well-written sequence because I feel it's very contemporary and current. And I feel it's something we all can relate to, right? Really, really good stuff.
Oh, big time. And I do love, again, everything you said about how just the Smallville sign, just that. And I love seeing this final moment where they had that great moment of, the small town, the big city girl and the small town boy together. And then it's interrupted with a yell of Superman and Superwoman.
Yeah.
And the thing I love is the fact that who was calling out to them. It was Supergirl calling out to them. Back when Green Arrow had a story when Connor was shot and killed and all that, and it was Ollie yelling at the top of his lungs, "Clark, help!" They had a comment in there where Clark's he hears everything, but sometimes it's somebody who you would never expect to say something in a way. And that's what triggered. And that's why he was able to hear Ollie yelling for help over the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. This same kind of thing with Kara calling to them for help. That's what triggered them to fly fast.
Did you say earlier, it was off air, did you say earlier you're caught up on that book, Green Arrow?
Yes, I'm now caught up on it.
So good. We need to talk about that book.
Dude, man.
Yes. If you're not reading Green Arrow and you're listening to this, do yourself a favor. It is a very, very good book.
Oh, God, yes. It is absolutely brilliant. I am loving Green Arrow right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good time to be a Green Arrow fan because they brought back a lot of what we do a whole episode of. We're going to do a whole couple.
We're going to do one
about it, but it brought back so much of what we like about the Team Arrow and the Arrow family. I think they're unique from the Superman family and what you get from them and the Batman family. The flavor's so hot.
Yeah, I'm going to add one quick thing, even though we're not going into details.
No, go for it.
They're doing a brilliant Team Arrow, but they're also doing a brilliant Oliver Queen.
Yes.
Oh my God. That's one of the things I love. You and I both loved Team Arrow when they had that whole series and even the TV show, all that stuff. We love that. Mm-hmm. But this Ollie they're doing some brilliant stuff with Ollie. Yeah. So 100% recommend to people go out there, read some Green Arrow. You're going to love it.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about it. So you're kind of preparing to be ready for the show because we've got to talk about that book. So I like Kara's they just teleported in. You have Batman's phone number right back to that conversation with Lois. I love the book ending of that. Seeing this, when you see something this scale and you get to see this group called the Aftermath, these are the various worlds that have dealt with Doomsday. And they're basically sitting here, this is my people's funeral garb. We wear it now because Doomsday has turned us into living death. You have exactly 1 hour to turn Doomsday over to us, or we will grant you the same mercy that monster granted our people, and we will kill everyone on your world. Wow.
Yeah. And that is a massive armada. That is huge. I'm like, man, yes, this is a job for Superman. This is a job for the super family. Let's bring in the Justice League, the Titans. Let's cross universe and bring in the Avengers. This is epic. And I love, again, the power of the, oh my God, what's going to happen next in this story.
In the to be continued, is Williamson doing a Sound of Music shout out?
What do you do with a monster like you? I'll be honest, I missed that until now. Outstanding.
If he didn't, it sure works. But this is, wow. I can't wait till next week. Continue talking about this particular series. This is a really, really terrific Superman story. If you've not been reading this book and Action Comics and Superman Unlimited, this is a great time to be a Superman fan. They talk about Summer of Superman, and they really have built these books. And this is an example of the building blocks getting to Summer of Superman. This is what this story is all about. They've done a great job with these books of getting us to the point we're at right now, where Superman feels like an event every month. This is a must read every month, must read to see what's going to happen next to all of these characters. To balance this many characters and make everyone feel like they're relevant and important, and to keep you interested in a future build, this is a masterclass in how you do serialized storytelling. This is why this counts. In this day and age, I think we need this now more than ever. We're seeing less and less of the 22, 23 episode television shows and more of the smaller, contained stories. Comic books, to me, fill that itch of, there's something with those larger TV seasons. When I look back, I'm watching Smallville still because I listen to that Talkville podcast, and I'm trying to stay relatively close to them. I'm a little bit ahead of them. The reason being is I'm enjoying hearing their commentary and being able to reflect on the episode. But what I've noticed, they have some of those filler episodes, right, where they are strictly about character development. And some of them worked extremely well. Others were like, it's a filler episode. It was a good episode. We can kind of just keep moving on. But I really love the amount of character depth you get from that with a serialized story. This is something that comics are offering right now that we need to protect, because I don't ever want comic books to only be these straight to trade stories where you don't have the serialization continuing. I think you need these long form books to really appreciate what it's like to be a comic book reader, and the need for immediacy. Like, this lends itself to, I got to read the next issue. I got to know what's going on next. I can't stop. And you get that frustration when you get to a cliffhanger like this and you go, I got to wait a month. I love this stuff. I absolutely love this stuff. This is a great storyline. I'm glad we did this one.
We are Crystal Men from Mercury. We have no quarrel with you.
All right, Jim, let's talk about this. If you were listening to our opening our episode, we announced ourselves as a DC Comics fan podcast and announced season 3. This is something that Jim and I have been talking about for a few weeks now and kind of pondering. I've really loved what we've been doing with season 2 and kind of exploring other comic companies outside of DC Comics. But one of the things that I've been really struggling with is the factor of time, and the fact that while we're dealing with a lot of big storylines, we don't have the opportunity to really get intimate with some of the B and C level characters, some of the smaller books, some of the unique limited series that are out there because of time. Ultimately, if I had all the time in the world, I'd love to release a podcast daily. That's not a reality. One of the things I always loved about Raging Bullets when we've been DC focused has been the fact that we've been able to take some time to be able to talk about things like Black Canary Best of the Best, which is going to be an upcoming book we're going to be discussing, and Green Arrow and characters like that, Aquaman, and just different characters that we'd really like to deep dive and get to again. And quite frankly, I'm going to be honest, I've missed the DC universe. I've missed being able to really focus heavy on a comic book universe. I talked to Jim about this and shared some of my thoughts and just to try to see where he's at, because truly, the fact that in order for you guys to enjoy what we do and be able to embrace it, we've got to be heavy into what we're doing. And if he wasn't on board and didn't feel the same way I did, we might have a problem. So, Jim, what are your thoughts on this, and where were you at?
Oh God, I was all in on what when you were saying that, because it was funny that you mentioned Best of the Best. Mm-hmm. The Black Canary story kind of fell through the cracks for me, and I didn't even know it was a thing. And we were getting ready for I was rereading the stuff in the Superman, and they were advertising, and I'm like, what the heck was that? So I started reading it. I'm like, oh my God, this is epic. How did I miss this?
Yes.
And then I started thinking, I was like, all the different DC stuff I had missed. I went back and I'm, getting caught up on Aquaman, reading some of the Green Arrow stuff. I was like, oh my God. And it was just one of those things where I was like, I was trying to balance all this together. So then you threw out, hey, do you want to go back? I'm like, yes, yes. I'm all in on that, brother, because, again, like you said, it's when we were focused on it, it lets us actually, keep, we can pay more attention to some of the side stories, some of the stuff, and I don't want to even call them minor characters, but they're just other characters that are out there. Like, I am so far behind on Titans, and I got to get caught up on Titans.
Yeah.
I'm behind on Wonder Woman. And I love Wonder Woman, and I'm, working on getting caught up on Wonder Woman. Aquaman series completely was multiple issues before I even picked up the first issue, and I still am not caught up on Aquaman. And so these are some major stuff that I am missing out on. And so, when you threw that out there, I was like, heck yeah, man, let's do this. Because, again, I like it. Now, personally, I thought we should have gone with season 4 and just had season 3 be the mystery season and let you all wonder about that. But Sean's like, we kind of got to do season 3. I'm like, okay, I get you,
You know why? Because when we've done that crazy stuff in the past, we've ultimately gone back and undone it anyway. So, why? Like for example, our numbering right now, right?
Yeah.
We went back to our numbering, kind of what comic companies do. That's why this time around, I'm like, I'm not going to introduce it as season 3, episode 1. I even hazarded to call it season 3. It's like, really, we're going back to what it was. What's driving this is, 776, we are 24 episodes away from 800. And what was really hitting me is, what kind of a podcast do I want to be when we hit 800? What do we want that to look like? And I felt like I was really missing being able to talk about and focus heavily on some of the other books that are out there. We got so much of DC's history to still talk about. One of the things in the ad is this science fiction, the guerrilla world. It would be fun to do a book like that and just talk about the guerrilla world and stuff like that. And there's so many great stories out there to discuss. There was stuff on this Superman episode involving Legion. I was kind of jonesing. I'm like, it'd be fun to do a Legion episode.
Yes, it would be.
And do those. So we got a lot of stuff to discuss.
Would be fun, Sean?
What?
You know what else would be fun?
What?
Hush.
Yes. Yeah, I don't think we ever did Hush. We were talking about that because we want to do Hush too. But the question is, do we do, if we haven't done Hush? I got to look back at our episodes. I don't think we ever did.
I don't think we did, dude.
I think we've talked about it because of the Absolute Edition. Remember when that beautiful Absolute Edition came out? I think we talked about that book, as far as the quality of the tome it was collected in, but I don't think we ever actually did it. So that maybe we do some episodes on Hush before we go to Hush 2. Do a Hushathon.
Yes, but we are still, every so often, we're going to throw out a non-DC focus. We still have our pop culture and potpourri and whatnot, that we can still do other titles, because we're going to definitely do that Excalibur story that we were talking
Cross Time
about.
Caper,
We're 100% going to do that, and part of me still would like to talk No More Mutants. I would love to go through that, somehow. That's a massive one. I don't know how we would actually talk that story arc.
I think some of those might be bonus episodes, though. We might call that I'm looking at the pop culture and whatnot as being, an additional release from us that we would put out down the road for us to do those things. The renewed DC focus. I like the idea of being able to continue doing these storylines. But, we're to the point of everything you threw out there, Jim. There's a lot of books where there'd be a point for us to just grab a single issue, read it, where we're at right now, and talk about how we feel about the book. Is this motivating us to jump in and be a part of that book again in a way that we haven't been in a while? I think there's a lot of books in the universe that'd be worth kind of exploring. Where DC's at now, when we kind of took... We were kind of for us, it's kind of 1 year later.
Yeah.
or a 1 year later plus. And that's part of what the drive is with this. So I'm hoping for those of you that have been with us in the past and enjoyed us as a DC podcast, that you're going to be glad that we're doing this and excited to hear us tell some of the stories. For those of you that joined us as a comics fan podcast, like I said, like Jim said, we're going to still do some of those pop culture and whatnot episodes. We always did them in the past anyway, just to be able to. We have friends who do independent books and things like that, and we'd like to be able to shout those out. There's going to be some special stories that we're going to want to do. But the renewed focus is on this being a DC podcast and being able to do really deep dives into DC stories and point out some things that you might be missing. That Black Canary one is, I can actually announce it right now. We're doing that after the Superman story. We're doing Black Canary Best of the Best, mainly because of the fact that I want to get back to shouting out some of these books that you may have missed that you should read. So good stuff. Hopefully you'll join us for that. On that note, RagingBullets.com is where you're going to find out, and you'll see it's going to be recently rebranded. RagingBullets.com is where you go to find out news on upcoming episodes and releases. We do have a show request section, so if there's something in actually DC that you'd like to hear us do, and it's non-DC and you want to hear us do, go ahead and click on that and put it in, and we'll try to put something on the slate for you, because we love having your involvement in the show. Actually, if you'd like to join us, put a little tab in there as well for that piece, because we enjoy talking to guests as well, so we wouldn't mind having you on the podcast if you'd like to join us as well. That feeds into X/Twitter. It feeds into our Facebook fan page. We are very, very lucky to have a great Facebook group community, and really appreciate everyone who posts all kinds of content there, news on what's going on with pop culture. We have some friends who will post their blog posts relevant to the show and things like that. Please feel free to keep doing that and use us as a resource. You'll actually see that we have two Facebook groups. What happened was one of the groups is kind of our current group that's going. The other one's a legacy group that they shut down for a while because of the fact that there was some weird copyright issue or something they said was there, and then they brought it back. And there's no way for me to merge them. So they both still exist. I post all of our episodes in both. Please feel free, if you have comments on the show, and this is really where I'm going with this, post them there. We like to hear from you. The About Us section of our show website is where you can connect with us on gaming platforms and social media. Bi-weekly, you can find me on Is It Jaws, which is a film review podcast that Paul Spataro was kind enough to invite me to be a part of. I love film, so it's a great film review podcast. We actually did a Superman episode that's going to be releasing soon. That's a film review episode. It's a great companion to our last episode on this piece. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segulin, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
We have Adventures of Superman, Book of L, issue 1 of 12, 38% off, only $247. This is a continuation or the conclusion of the events from Future State Superman. So thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com, they have their deals of the week. DC's finest. Science fiction, The Gorilla World. $39.99 regularly. 55% off, only $17.99. It's a great deal for that book. Superman Action Comics Phantoms trade paperback, $24.99 regularly, 48% off, only $12.99. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Our next episode, Jim and I are going to be back, and we're going to wrap up Superwoman. We will talk to you then.
Bye.
Raging Bullets, a podcast for comic fans on the internet.
Download or stream it now.
Hosted by the legendary Sean and Jim. Spoilers are ahead.
Let's talk some comics now.
The Raging Bullet Show. Let's go.